Jake Morgan stood at the window of the research vessel, Aurora Dawn. The stars outside looked like small lights in a black sea. He had always loved space, but today felt different. Today was the first time he would meet a member of the Viari. They were known for their beauty and for keeping to themselves. No human had spent much time with them before. The ship had landed on a quiet moon covered in silver plants and glowing streams. The air was calm and cool. Jake stepped down the ramp and followed a guide to the gardens. The guide walked without saying much. Jake noticed that the place felt almost too quiet, as if sound itself was being careful not to disturb the peace. In the garden, he saw her. Lyra stood near a stream, her long silver hair moving gently in the breeze. Her skin had a faint shimmer, like the light on water. She turned when she heard him. Her eyes were bright but guarded. She spoke in soft, careful words, her voice like a song. "You are Jake," she said. "The one sent to speak with me." He smiled. "Yes, and you are Lyra." She gave a small nod. There was no handshake. The Viari did not greet with touch. Instead, she placed her hand over her heart and bowed her head slightly. Jake copied the motion, felt strange but respectful. They began to walk through the garden. Lyra pointed to plants and told him their names in her language. He tried to repeat them, making her smile once when he pronounced one wrong in a funny way. He told her about earth plants, about trees that changed colors in the fall, about flowers that only bloomed at night. She listened with interest but never came too close. Jake had been told that his main task was to learn about her people's customs and to teach her about humans. But it was clear that trust would not come quickly. Every move she made seemed careful, measured. The Viari were not cold, but they were cautious. They had been part of the galaxy for hundreds of years, yet they kept their distance from most others. As they walked, he noticed her eyes often drifted to his hands. Humans used their hands in greetings, in helping, in comfort. Perhaps she was wondering what it would be like if he reached out. But Jake remembered the warning from his captain. Never touch a Viari without permission. For them, touch was a deep sign of trust. They stopped by a tree with silver leaves. The wind made a soft sound as it moved through the branches. Lyra touched one of the leaves and said something in her language. Then she looked at him. "This tree," she said slowly, searching for the right words, "is where friends meet." "In our way, we give each other our stories here." Jake asked what she meant. She explained that Viari friendship often began with sharing personal stories in a quiet place. Not about politics or duty, but about the small things that made them who they were. Jake thought for a moment. Then he told her about a small park near his childhood home where he used to watch the sunset with his mother. He described the smell of the grass and the sound of the evening crickets. Lyra listened without interrupting. When he finished, she told him about a time in her youth when she followed the glowing streams at night, believing they would lead her to the stars. She had walked for hours, feeling the cool water on her feet, until she realized she had been walking in a circle. She laughed softly at the memory. Jake laughed too, and for the first time her eyes lost their guarded look. As the sun of the small moon began to set, they returned to the starting point. Lyra bowed her head again. "We will meet tomorrow," she said. Jake nodded. "I look forward to it." As he walked back to the ship, Jake felt something had shifted. It was small, almost invisible, but real. They were strangers, but now they shared two stories under the silver leaves. Maybe he thought that was the first step toward something more. The next morning, Jake woke early. The light of the moon's sun was soft and pale through the ship's window. He dressed quickly, feeling an odd sense of excitement. He was not sure if it was for the mission or for seeing Lyra again. The air outside was cool, and the path to the gardens was quiet, except for the faint sound of flowing water. Lyra was already there, standing by the silver-leaf tree. She greeted him with her hand over her heart. Her eyes were calm, but there was something different today. Her posture seemed less guarded. They began walking again, this time along the streams that glowed with a faint blue light. Lyra pointed out small fish-like creatures with transparent bodies. Jake bent down to look closer, fascinated by the way their insides seemed to shimmer. "They hide when strangers come," Lyra said, watching the creatures swim away. "But they return when they feel safe." Jake smiled. "Like your people?" She tilted her head, thinking about his words. "Perhaps. Trust is slow." They kept walking until they reached a small stone bridge. Lyra stopped there and leaned on the railing. Jake stood beside her, watching the water move below. He told her about rivers on Earth, about how people built homes near them, and how children played in the water during summer. Lyra listened with quiet interest. She began to tell him about the Vayari way of marking life changes. When someone reached a new stage of life, they would braid a small section of hair and keep it that way for a year. It was a sign of growth and remembrance. She brushed her silver hair back, showing him a thin braid near her ear. Jake wanted to ask what it meant, but he did not want to seem too curious too soon. They sat on a flat stone near the bridge. Jake took out a small device from his pocket and pressed a button. Soft music began to play, a slow melody from Earth. Lyra's eyes widened. She had heard of human music, but had never listened closely before. "It speaks without words," she said after a moment. "That's what I like about it," Jake replied. "Sometimes words are not enough." They listened for a while. The music mixed with the gentle sounds of the stream. It was peaceful in a way Jake had not felt in a long time. After the song ended, Lyra reached into a small pouch she carried and pulled out a thin, glass-like instrument. She held it to her lips and blew gently. A soft, clear tone filled the air. Jake sat still, feeling the sound flow around him like water. It was unlike any music he had heard before. "This is our oldest song," Lyra said when she stopped playing. "It is for beginnings." Jake thanked her for sharing it. He knew it was not a casual gift. In Vayari culture, sharing something old and important was a step toward trust. They walked back toward the tree with silver leaves. On the way, Jake asked her if she had ever seen Earth. She shook her head. "I see it in the images your people bring," she said. "Blue water, green lands, clouds like soft paths." "Maybe one day," Jake said, "you could see it for yourself." Lyra looked thoughtful. "Perhaps, if the path between our peoples is safe." When they reached the tree, the sky above was changing to a soft gold. Lyra stood quietly for a moment, then said, "You may tell me one more story tomorrow, but it must be about something you hold close." Jake nodded. "I will think of one." She gave her small bow again and walked away toward the council buildings. Jake stayed under the tree for a few minutes, thinking about her words. Something you hold close. He wondered what story would be right for that. He also wondered if she knew that she was already becoming part of his own story. Back on the ship, he wrote down notes about the day for his report. But there were some details he kept for himself, things that no report could capture. The way she listened. The way her voice softened when she spoke of beginnings. The quiet sense that step by step, they were learning to trust each other. Jake woke to the sound of rain tapping against the window of the Aurora Dawn. It was unusual to hear rain on this moon. He wondered what the gardens would look like under the soft silver drops. The air inside the ship felt cool, carrying the faint scent of the wet world outside. He made his way to the gardens with a light jacket. The paths were damp, and the glowing streams shone brighter against the darker sky. He found Lyra under the silver-leaf tree, standing perfectly still as the rain touched her hair and face. She turned when she saw him and gave her small bow. "The sky is speaking today," she said softly. Jake smiled. "We say the same thing on Earth." They began walking along the stone path. The rain made the plants glisten, and small drops hung from the leaves like glass beads. Lyra seemed more relaxed than usual, almost at ease in the quiet storm. She asked Jake about his story, the one she had asked for yesterday. He thought for a moment, and then told her about his first time sailing on the ocean. He had been a teenager, and the waves had been rough. He spoke about the fear he felt when the boat tilted and the spray hit his face, but also about the peace he found when the wind calmed and the water turned smooth. Lyra listened without interrupting, her eyes on his face the entire time. "You trusted the boat," she said when he finished. "I did," Jake replied, "and the people with me." They reached a small shelter near the edge of the garden. Inside, there was a bench made from smooth stone. They sat together while the rain softened outside. Lyra began to speak about her own memory. She told him about a night when she was young and had to cross the open plains alone. There was a bright light in the sky, and she followed it, believing it was a sign from her ancestors. In the end, it had been only a star, but the journey taught her that courage often came from walking forward, even when the meaning was unclear. Jake thought her story was beautiful, He could see that it was not easy for her to share something so personal. He thanked her quietly and she nodded. The rain slowed, and they continued walking. As they moved through the garden, Jake noticed Lyra's hair had small tangles from the wind and rain. Without thinking too much, he said, "On Earth, when someone's hair is tangled, we sometimes brush it to help." Lyra stopped walking. She looked at him, her expression unreadable. "In my people's way, to touch another's hair is to hold their trust." Jake felt a moment of uncertainty. I would never harm that trust. They stood in silence for a long moment. Then Lyra stepped closer, her silver hair catching the fading light. She lowered her head slightly, as if giving permission. Jake took a small wooden comb from his pocket, something he had brought from Earth as a gift for her one day. Slowly and gently, he began to brush her hair. Lyra froze at first, her body still as stone. The only sound was the soft pull of the comb through her hair and the distant drip of rain from the trees, making sure not to pull too hard. As he worked, he felt the tension in her shoulders ease. When he finished, Lyra lifted her head. Her eyes held a strange light, something between wonder and thought. "No human has done this before," she said quietly. Jake put the comb away. "Then I hope I did it right." She gave the smallest of smiles. "You did." They walked back toward the silver leaf tree, the space between them feeling changed. The rain had stopped, and the air was fresh and clean. Jake knew this was more than a simple gesture. It was a bridge, fragile but real. As they parted for the day, Lyra said, "Tomorrow, I will show you something only my people have seen." Jake nodded, his mind already wondering what it could be. He knew that whatever it was, it would carry the same weight as today's moment. The next day, Jake walked to the gardens with a mix of curiosity and caution. Lyra's words from yesterday stayed in his mind. She had promised to show him something only her people had seen. He wondered what could be so special and so private. The path was quiet, except for the soft rustle of leaves. Lyra was waiting near the silver leaf tree. Her silver hair shone in the morning light, smooth from the brushing he had done the day before. She greeted him with her hand over her heart and said, "Follow me." They walked away from the main paths, deeper into the gardens, where the plants grew taller and the streams became narrow. The air here felt different, cooler, and filled with a faint, sweet scent. Birds with crystal-like feathers flew above them, their wings making a soft sound like tiny chimes. After some time, they reached a hidden clearing. In the center was a pool of clear water, glowing softly from the stones beneath it. Lyra knelt by the edge and touched the surface with her fingertips. The water rippled and then began to form shapes. Jake's eyes widened as he saw light patterns rise above the pool. They looked like stars, moving slowly in the air. "This is the memory pool," Lyra said. "It holds the stories of my people. Each pattern is a moment from our past." Jake watched as the light shifted into the shape of a Vyari ship sailing through the stars. Then it changed into a field of silver plants swaying in the wind. It was like watching living history. He felt honored to see it. "Only the council and a few chosen others are allowed here," Lyra continued. "To bring you here is to give you my trust." Jake understood the weight of her words. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I will keep this in my memory, always." They sat by the pool for a while, watching the lights change. Lyra told him that each pattern was linked to a song, and if you knew the right melody, you could call up a specific story. She hummed one of the songs, and the pool showed a group of Vyari children playing by the streams, their laughter frozen in light. The peace of the moment was broken by a faint hum in the air. Jake looked up and saw a small drone hovering in the trees. Its lens pointed directly at them. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "That is not one of ours," she said. Jake stood quickly. The drone backed away, then flew off toward the horizon. He knew it was likely a human model. Someone from his own side had sent it, maybe to record their meeting. His stomach tightened. If that footage reached the wrong people, it could be misunderstood. "I am sorry," Jake said. "I did not know about it." Lyra looked at him for a long moment, her face unreadable. "I believe you, but others may not." They left the clearing in silence. The walk back felt longer, the earlier warmth replaced by an edge of worry. Jake thought about the possible consequences. Some in the Human Council would see the hairbrushing as a step toward unity. Others might see it as a breach of cultural rules, and the Viari Council might see it as weakness. When they reached the silverleaf tree, Lyra stopped. "If questions come, I will speak for you. Yeah. But you must also be ready to speak for me." Jake met her gaze. "I will." She gave a single nod, then walked away toward the council buildings. Jake remained under the tree, thinking about the path they were on. It felt fragile now, like a bridge made of glass. One wrong step and it could shatter. Back on the ship, Jake received a message from his captain. The captain's tone was sharp. The drone footage had been received by human officials, and there would be questions. Jake knew that tomorrow might not be like the other days. Tomorrow could be the day when trust was either broken or made stronger. The next morning, the air on the moon felt heavy. Jake could sense it the moment he stepped outside the Aurora Dawn. There was no soft breeze like before, only stillness. We walked to the gardens knowing that today would not be like the others. Lyra was waiting under the silver leaf tree. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were sharp. "The councils will meet today," she said. "They have seen the recording." Jake nodded. "I guess they would." "What will happen?" "Questions, accusations, doubt," Lyra replied. "But also a chance. If we speak well, they may understand." They walked together toward the council buildings. The path felt longer than usual. The silver plants around them swayed slightly, though there was no wind. Jake noticed the way Lyra's hands stayed loosely at her sides, a sign she was trying to appear relaxed. Inside the council chamber, representatives from both humans and Viari sat in a wide circle. A large screen showed a still image from the drone footage, Jake brushing Lyra's hair. The moment looked frozen in time, stripped of its meaning. A human council member spoke first. "Why was such contact made without prior agreement?" Vayar Elder added. "And why was it allowed?" Lyra stepped forward. Her voice was steady, because it was not a breach. It was a gift, in my people's way. Allowing someone to touch your hair means you trust them fully. I gave that trust to Jake Morgan. Murmurs moved through the room. Some faces softened, others stayed stern. Jake spoke next. "I understood the meaning, and I accepted it with care. I would never use that trust for harm. It was a human gesture of comfort, and it became something greater because she allowed it." A human representative leaned forward. "And the drone, was it sent by you?" Jake shook his head. "No. I believe someone acted without my knowledge, perhaps to test the situation. But the truth of that moment cannot be changed by the camera." The room fell quiet. Lyra looked around at the faces watching her. "We speak of treaties and agreements," she said, "but trust is built in smaller ways. A word shared under a tree, a story by the water, a simple act that says, 'I see you as my equal.'" The Viari elder, who had questioned her before, now looked thoughtful. "Your people have always kept distance," he said. "Yet you crossed that distance." "Yes," Lyra answered. "Because distance cannot protect us from misunderstanding forever. Only closeness can do that." The discussion went on for hours. Some argued for stricter rules, others for more open contact. But as time passed, the tone in the room shifted. The image of the hairbrushing was no longer just a frozen scene on the screen. It had become a symbol in their minds. When the meeting ended, the councils announced a new agreement. There would be more exchanges between humans and Viari, starting with shared cultural visits. No one called it a full alliance, but it was a step forward. Outside the building, the sky was turning gold. Lyra and Jake stood by the gardens once more. Silver leaves above them caught the light. "It could have gone the other way," Jake said quietly. "Still could if we are careless," Lyra replied. Then her voice softened. But today was a good beginning. They walked to the stream and sat on the stone bench. For a while, they said nothing. The water moved gently, carrying small ripples to the edge. Jake took the wooden comb from his pocket. "May I?" he asked. Lyra gave a small smile and nodded. This time, there was no freezing, no tension. She closed her eyes as he brushed her hair, the motion slow and careful. When he finished, she opened her eyes and looked at him. "Now the world knows," she said, "and it will watch." Jake nodded. "Then we give them something worth watching." The sun dipped lower, painting the gardens in warm light. For a moment, the weight of councils and politics faded. There was only a human and a Viari, sitting together under silver leaves, building something fragile and new.